so we're gonna get this thing going. Everyone who's joining, welcome, welcome. Hey Ed, what's happening? Kayla's in here. What's happening? I think Bob was in here earlier, so if he's still here, hey, what's going on? So
Shoot something to Steven Gutterman and say,
Stephen Gutterman, what's happening? Happening, homie. Love that guy. Good guy. Yeah. So welcome. This is me and Ben. We're gonna sit here. We're gonna talk a little bit about voice. Coming live from the community music space page. Some of you guys who are here, well, you're a friend, so you already know us. But we'll talk a little bit more about what we do and as a professional vocalist, as professional vocalists and educators as well. And see if there's anything that can help as far as like vocal technique, um, as far as like approach about the philosophy that we have around teaching voice and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of see where we go. If you have questions as we're going, that's why I pulled up the comments. I want you to go ahead and just put them right there in the chat, and we'll go ahead and make sure that we can answer some of those questions. We want to make sure that you're engaged as well, and it's not just us talking about voice. So Ben, let's start off, man. Let's talk a little bit about your experience as a vocalist and also as a teacher, and kind of how you got started with singing in general, and then also how that transitioned into you teaching.
great, yeah. Thanks. First of all, thanks, Paul, for helping put this whole thing together. It's like this is a brave new world we're living in. So I'm stoked to be like involved and working and all this stuff. And for those of you that don't know, Paul and I are partners in crime here, as far as building new educational opportunities as well as professional opportunities in the singing world, but also in the music production world and in an educational side as well. So a little bit about myself. Growing up, I started singing a cappella. My father's a musician, my mother is a singer. And I grew up, playing saxophone and playing piano and playing guitar. And when I was about 15, I joined an a cappella group with my friend Jake Schroeder and a few other guys, and my buddy Craig McIntosh, the guys that I grew up with in high school. And we started singing doo-wop music. And we had this five kids from Boulder, Colorado, and we started singing basically on the street corners, and singing for school functions, and I really fell in love with the whole genre, Sam, and really got into like Sam Cooke and Sam and Dave and all that great music, and also like a lot of the doo-wop music, like the Tokens and the Lion Sleeps Tonight and all that good music. And that was really kind of the entree into this understanding that, wow, like singing can be something that you can do with nobody else, right? It can just be five voices up and running. And so we did that for a little while, and then we had the great fortune of meeting Joe Russell from the Persuasions, who was in the legendary Brooklyn a cappella group. And we got to go to New York and have a real experience of singing with them and touring with them, staying in parts of Brooklyn that we probably shouldn't have been in the late 80s.
Oh, dude.
But we learned a lot, and I cut my teeth. And then so as a singer, that was really what taught me like the idea of like the power of the voice. That was my first real, other than the choirs and things like this, but we realized how much strength you can have in your voice. I learned how to articulate. I learned all these things, and Paul, you can speak to this too. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know I was learning, like posture, articulation, how to project over a crowd of 200 people, how to, I didn't know these things, but we had to do them. So we learned them on the fly, and learned them on the streets. And that was really a great experience. We got to go to Atlanta and perform there, and you know, so, and then by the time I turned 19, about 20, the band broke up, and I was washing dishes. So that
As
was,
bands do, right? They broke up. I watched. You know, it's funny. I think that's a rite of passage. I think like as singers, we end up washing dishes at some point in our career. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I think it's almost like the singer or musician's rite of passage. I did. I was a dishwasher actually at a couple of restaurants early in this journey as well. And so I mean, one of the things you talked about, you were just talking about like, you know, all the things you can learn about, you know, posture and these other aspects of singing. One of the things I think that when I think about a lot when I think about singing, especially in an a cappella group, is that you can also learn how to listen, like listening skills. Like it's like the key to, especially in a cappella. So, how did a cappella singing help you with just listening musically and listening in your day to day life?
yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, you know, one of the funny things about being in a band when you're young is that you would rehearse, and I'm sure you remember this, Paul, too. We would rehearse endlessly for one gig. Like we would rehearse like, you know, 3 weeks, 5 days in a row for like a single gig. Rehearse, and I'm sure you remember this, Paul, too. We would rehearse like we would rehearse like. Oops, I got a delay there.
Yeah, my fault. Okay.
So you know, as we and now, you know, as you get older, then you rehearse once for like 10 gigs, right?
Yeah.
So as a kid, we would rehearse, and as an a cappella music, we realized like how much that, you know, if one person was rushing or one person was off key, there was no instrument that was going to pull you back onto pitch. So a lot of times we would start in the key of C, and then by the end of the song we would be in the key of B. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we kind of
100%.
drift and move around. And as one person began to go flat, which was always what happened, because it wasn't, people didn't go sharp. People,
Yeah. It's always flat.
a lot of
Yeah.
it I learned later as a vocal coach, it came down to, you know, it came down to losing strength in your voice, like your
Mm.
would actually be you get fatigued, and once you get fatigued, you start to relax your apparatus, and then you would go flat, right? So all the musculature that you need in order to keep that pitch would start to lag after, you know, half an hour or something like this, and the whole group. So you had to listen so much to like be like, okay, well, you know, we're slagging, but we're you know we're starting to go flat, but as long as we stay in pitch with each other, we're going to be okay. So you had to listen so much to what other people were doing, because there was no other there was nothing, there's no instrument that was going to go, this is a C, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is that a lot of times when the wind blew or when something happens, all of a sudden you couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instruments weren't loud enough, so you really had to, like, I can't hear what the bass is doing. I can't hear what this person doing. I just have to like you know. So you'd have to really listen. Like my qigong teacher says, always listen for the far away sound, right? You
Mm.
know, you always listen for that sound that was like, I can barely hear what he's doing. I just have to like. So you have to really listen hard, and a lot of that would come down to vibrations, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're like a collections of vibrations. So if you weren't willing to you know, feel where the person was coming from, because sometimes you couldn't hear where they're coming from, so
Mm.
listening takes on even a deeper connotation at that point.
And trust, and like it's wild because there's a point in which it stops just being like, hey, I'm listening to make sure I'm singing the right part in relationship to the rest of the people singing, to like just knowing that that person's going to be there at their part, landing it where they need to be, and that you have to trust, almost it's weird, it's like connectivity, and also with the other people, and also like this place of like focus for yourself. Like at least when I've been singing in groups,
Yeah,
that's been the thing that I found is like I got to keep my part, which is like everyone's responsibility, and
right.
then I need to listen to their part to make sure if they go somewhere else, I can go there and follow. And I think that's just interesting. Like even when you're thinking about singing in that way, I think that really talks about it in the standpoint of communication, and that anybody that wants to learn how can I communicate better can really dig into starting to learn to sing to help them with their day-to-day communication, not just learning how to sing. So let's talk. Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you start? Like, when you get a new vocal student, like, say I'm your vocal student, where do you begin? Like, what are you thinking about as far as like, hey, this is as a teacher,
Right.
I want to meet the student where they are. Maybe they want to be a professional. Maybe they just want to try it as a hobby. Maybe they, they're trying to build confidence. Where do you begin with your students?
So, exactly what you just said, which is you have to meet them where they are. So the first thing we do is I ask them questions. What their goals are, what their experience is, and through the conversation, you start to get a sense of where they are. Singing is one of the most powerful, and it's the original instrument, and there's evidence that singing and music preceded language. That's as a way of humans to communicate with each other. So the idea that Jessica Rogalski says I was a dishwasher once. I
I
love
saw that. Yeah, I told her. I hit her up. I said it's a rite of passage.
that's
Like we've all gone that way, right? Good.
another, and one of a dear friend and one of the best singers I've ever heard in my life. So she's another pro singer out there. But I think that the idea that we have to find um, that place when you're talking to a new student, that recognize where they are and where they're coming from and what I was going to say is that it's one of the most um, empowering instruments. It's also one of the most insecure instruments. So if you're having an issue, if you're feeling insecure, your voice can change dramatically. As we all know, it all comes back to breath. So if you're feeling nervous, your breathing goes up and then your singing goes right out the window. So my first, when I'm working with a new student, is really to gauge where they are, emotionally, and then once I get an understanding of that, to recognize that and let them know that singing is a practice of self-discovery. So you're learning how to sing this song, you're learning this technique, but what you're really learning is how to discover more about yourself. And so the techniques that I use go back to basic human nature. So things that we need in our lives that are essential
Mhm.
are the foundation, are the fundamental building blocks of singing. So, for example, posture, perfect,
Mhm.
right? One of the, how you stand, how you hold yourself. That's that standing, walking, running. Those are things that we have to do every day. When we, and even to a deeper extent, breathing is fundamental to our lives. It's also how we breathe has everything to do with the way in which we um, communicate. And articulation, another one. Tongue placement, which has a lot to do with and articulation. I could say to you, okay, or I could be like, okay, or I could be like,
Mhm.
okay, right? And each one of those has a different meaning.
Mhm.
And so all of these are fundamental to learning how to sing. They're also fundamental qualities that we use every day in order to live. And I think that
Yeah.
that's really where I try to meet my student is, where are you hoping to go? And then beyond that, how are you going to discover something about yourself that taking voice lessons can assist you in?
Yeah, I love it. I love that. I love that whole take on that because that's exactly what we want to talk about, and I think a lot of what the practice at space studios and community music space is really just about the holistic approach to the artist. Like, how can you take like not just a person that everyone is capable of creating in some sort of way, and being able to take like a full view of that person, not just like, oh, you're coming in to learn how to sing, let's make you a pop star or like whatever it is. It's really getting into the nitty gritty of, like you said, where is that person right now? How
Mhm.
can they use that instrument? And so for me, I think the question I have is maybe we could go through maybe it'd be helpful for people who are watching, go through like a breathing exercise of some sort that would maybe help with like kind of something they could take with them, and then we'll look at some comments also. So maybe go through one.
Absolutely. So when we start, the first thing that I teach when we start is breathing, right? And I think for most vocal coaches, that's at a foundation of, because and you can tell when you meet your student whether they know how to breathe or not. And so the first thing I usually do is just blow the candle out. So I set the candle up. There's a candle,
Yeah,
right?
there's a candle right there.
There's a candle.
Okay, cool. I got my candle.
Put it about an arm's length, and then blow the candle out. So if you go, right, right, and a lot of people, what they're going to do is they're going to go, see if you can see here, they're going to go like this, right, and they're going to bring the air up into their upper lungs. Now,
Which is exactly what I just did, actually.
exactly, and a lot of great singers do, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
The idea of, you can't push through your rib cage to get to your lungs, right?
Yeah.
So breathing up here, you don't have any strength up here, right? Your abdominal muscles are the strongest muscles in your body. So when you compress your abdomen down here, right, it should work as a pump. So you begin at point A, right, with a relaxed belly, right? And you breathe out and you compress your abdomen. And then you breathe in. And my vocal coach, and actually Jessica Rogowski's vocal coach, and who kind of really helped both of us, I think, in our vocal teaching practice. We both went through his teaching practice. It was Dr. Scott Martin. He had this big belly. And when he breathed out, he breathed out and he would compress. And when he breathed in, his belly would like, boom, drop like Santa Claus. You know what I mean? It was like, boom.
Oh man, it's so counterintuitive too, because I feel like, and even like when we like, Ben and I, outside of like music creation, we also like are friends. So we've taken like qigong classes together and that. So I like literally like the opposite is true in qigong. It's like asking you to pull in with your breath, and it's so counterintuitive to think about filling up your diaphragm and breathing out so you make your belly full. And it took me a while to get that concept.
Right, and that's actually a backwards. There's the fundamental breathing for qigong is the same as singing, right?
Yeah.
Push and the air goes out. You breathe in, and then but there is a technique in qigong, I Jing Jing, I think it's called, and it's a backwards breathing technique. And Stephen Pegg, who's been we've both been studying with, is taught that technique, and it's a controversial technique because a lot of people say, well, this is wrong. You can't like you can't breathe out and puff your belly out at the same time, right? It makes a lot more sense. So if you think about it from a baby's perspective, like if you're watching lying on a bed breathing, they breathe in, belly goes up, they breathe out, belly goes down, right? So so the fundamental is your abdomen compresses as you breathe out, right? Yeah. So it's in, out, and it's definitely and the truth is that once you develop that low breathing, and I always think of it as like, think of the air that's coming in as lead, right? So it comes in, drops down, fills your belly, right? And then breathing out is like now it's like helium. It goes out and there, and you compress. So the act of breathing out is the only effort you have to do. The act of breathing in is simply an act of relaxing, right?
Okay.
Well, if you just relax everything, which way does the air go? Right? What do? We take a breath. You go. The air comes in, and then you let it out. But the first thing we have to do is relax, right? And then the air, and allow the air in. But the act of singing is the act of, right, expressing air out, right? The act of breathing in is simply the act of relaxing.
I love it.
And if you get comfortable with that and you really feel the load, and beyond that, your breathing should work like a pump, right?
Mhm.
and it doesn't matter whether you're singing loud or soft or airy or resonant, that pump is going to move back and forth. And that's what we're trying to get to with breathing is the point where, and that's where it connects to posture, but we're trying to get to a point where where our abdomen just works like a compressor. It just pumps air in and out and in and out. Then the strength and the support, and this is where Dr. Scott was really monumental in this whole um, conversation, was that the support comes from all those muscles below, and in particular your Kegel muscles, which are the muscles that women who've given birth know, because they're the muscles that you push a baby out with. So it's like those are those muscles, and then Dr. Scott would always say, take your toes and curl them into the ground, tighten your calves, your quads. That's what's going to make your voice thick,
Yeah.
right? And
I remember we were in the studio and we were working on a song, and that the first time you told me that to do that, I was like, this is crazy. What is he talking about? And then I just trusted. I said, okay, we're working on this song, it's my friend. I'll try it. I tried to do it and it totally worked. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this wrong for years. This is amazing. So no, that's a big one. I love that.
yeah, Jessica just wrote, J breathing is a fundamental lesson in my teaching. And that's what Jessica's talking about is that idea that as you compress your air, right, you,
Hmm.
your abdomen, as you breathe out, your abdomen compresses this way. And then you, at the end, it actually lifts up. So point A to point B, if you begin with your exhale, you point A, and then B, you get all the way there. And you can see as I breathe out, you're going to feel that lift, right? And as you're doing that, and Dr. Scott used to have he had a bungee cord, and you would hold the bungee cord, and as you breathe out, you would go, and you would bring your abdomen in and up, right? And then
Yeah.
it was like a spring, and then when you relaxed, boom, right?
Yeah.
As you relax here, the air pops, it goes in, the air comes in. It also allows you to get a good amount of air back in without having, it's almost like it just you breathe out and then pops back, breathe out and pops back. And then once
My first vocal teachers is in here too. Little all shucks cute moment. My mom's in the room.
oh yeah,
Who
all
who
right.
said watching my babies breathe is how I learned. Laugh out loud. So the first person I probably heard sing ever was my mom, because I was in her belly and she sang a lot because she's a vocalist herself. So it was that's the first vocal teacher, right? The one who's you're in her body and she's actually singing and the vibration is actually reaching you from inside the womb. So yes, I will say that was that's a little cute moment where she's saying she saw us breathing and it actually helped her singing as breathing as well when you use that baby kind of analogy. So that's cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and that's it. And we all breathe naturally when we're relaxed. If
Yeah.
you're relaxed on it, you're on the beach and you're like, it's a beautiful day and you're lying there and you're like, oh, this is great. And everything's good in the world. You breathe that nice low belly breath and you're done, right? It's like and so the good, getting back to that idea of the student, when you go in, I mean, and I'm sure Jessica can attest to this, but and we should actually have Jessica on to talk about it.
Yeah, we should get her on the show. Like, definitely. Like, we're gonna do this more just to give you guys. We're gonna do a lot of these kind of talks with different artists and different aspects of it. Multiple times throughout the week. Just kind of showing what some of the things are that we do at the studio, from voice to guitar to the songwriters that we have here, some of the film stuff. So yeah, definitely, Jessica. We'd love to have you on at some point for sure.
So as we when you're dealing with a 16-year-old girl or young lady who's trying to learn how to sing, right? And so she wants to sing like Adele or Ariana Grande, and she's got a good voice, but what's amazing is the difference between one lesson to the next. Like, they can come in one day and they're feeling empowered and they're feeling strong, and then the next time they come in, it's like, and where they are emotionally in their life has everything to do with the voice that shows up that day for the lesson.
100%. It shows up. It shows up. Like, I know for myself, when I was a kid and I was going through stuff or thinking about things, my voice was totally different. Even now, like like we talk about that all the time. We're writing a song, we're working on something, and to actually go to the place where you want to kind of like if you're recording something, the trick is to actually get into the space. That's why almost sometimes of what you're communicating, because it's almost like you almost don't want to, you don't want to let it come across false, because you can feel that even if somebody can't, you've heard a song, all of us have heard a song, we've been like, it's just not reaching me, and you can't figure out why. And it could just be that in that moment it didn't get captured in the authenticity of when it was created. So you're trying to create as much as you can, as close to what you were feeling at the moment, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there is just a I mean, and why do we love the singers we love? I mean, Tom Waits is one of my favorite singers. I freaking love Tom Waits. Like Tom Waits is everything wrong with Tom Waits' voice. Like you know what I mean? He's got, but he's had that voice for 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And his articulation is great. And when he hits those high A's, like, high A, man, that's no joke, right? He's not,
Joke.
he's not like he's not just hitting, whatever. He's hitting those notes, and he's been doing it forever, and his voice is still there. I remember seeing George Porter Jr. from the Meters. He's at 74. He played bass and sang for like 2.5 hours, and his voice was rough, but man,
Yeah.
good. You know?
Yeah, and even like let's R.I.P. one of our favorites, mutual favorites, Bill Withers. Like the authenticity in his voice is what mattered the most. Like having that ability to just communicate the song in a way that was natural. And he even, the documentary they did on him when he was talking about, man, they saw me and they thought they wanted to have a bunch of like shiny suits and dancing people in the background, and all I wanted to do was sit there with my guitar and sing. And that can sometimes, just that natural use of the voice can really cut through as well. So,
Watch
so,
that
so
last video of him on singing "Just the Two of Us," wearing like a bow tie and a thing up there. Like that was the last thing you think he pretty much ever did, and like that was it. Like just the two of them. It was canned music with dancers in the background.
he looked miserable. He
Done.
looked totally miserable. I think that he said, "I'm done. I'm finished with this." Yeah. So let's talk about this, right? So we got some people in here who they're not aspiring so much to be singers, or maybe they don't sing in their life. And some people in here are, right? So like that are watching. And if you guys have questions, please put them in the comments. We definitely want to go ahead and like answer some of the questions that you have. We're going to get to that in a couple of minutes. So if you have some questions, go ahead and just start typing them in. So I'm not looking to be a singer. I don't even want to go out and perform. Maybe I'm not at that place. I'm, working in my job. Maybe I have like, day-to-day responsibilities that require me to get up in front of people and speak, or, in a business meeting or in a presentation center, or maybe I'm a teacher. What would you offer them as a way to get started with like utilizing their voice that would aid them in that day-to-day practice?
Absolutely. So let's say we've already had the conversation about breathing, because that's fundamental. The next things I would talk to them about, is connecting, because imagine imagine that your car is basically, or your voice is like a car engine, right? And you've got your vocal apparatus. You've got all these different independent things that are doing different things at different times. You've got your posture. You've got your breath. You have your tongue, which is this giant muscle, right? Which you have to, you've got two sets of muscles that either that close your vocal cords and your between your chest voice, and they have to go back and forth between your chest voice and your head voice. You've got your actual vocal cord. You've got all these things. At the end of the day, what you have is it creates one thing, which in the case of a car, it moves the car, right? Right, the engine. So all of those things go into making this car operate. And the same is true with your voice. So when you're when you're going through all of the you have to kind of create individual exercises for each technique, but then you have to be able to apply that to the end result. So breathing being fundamental, posture, and we can go there. I have a basic postural exercise that I do with all my students that just helps people get into their body. That would be one of the first thing too. I would say, like getting to a point where you are where you are connecting into your body, where you are aware of the things that you are doing, right? That's fundamental. And then when you get to for people, let's say people like this person doesn't even want to sing at all. They're like, I have to get up in front of people and speak. So connecting the breathing to articulation, right? And resonance. Those are the things. So understanding how do we resonate, right? And what is resonance? Well, resonance is just the application of taking air pressure, right, and converting it to sound pressure.
So why don't you show us something? Give us an example of that. Like how would I do articulation, like taking the sound pressure and then like making that so I could work on my resonance and articulation in respect to like, oh, that will help me when I get up in front of somebody, and speak.
So the first thing is resonating, right? So if you whisper, and this is to me is super fascinating. Like the idea of whispering is you're not using your vocal cords at all when you whisper. All you're doing is manipulating air pressure, right? So if I whisper like this, I'm just like moving air around in a way that you can understand me. To me, that's insane, right? Like I can just like push air around, and you can understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So like I can, if I whisper, I'm not using my vocal cords at all, right? So start to create what's called like a stage whisper, where you have a little bit of sound, right? Then you're engaging your vocal cords and you're converting the air pressure into sound pressure, right? And so these are two different things. You have the resonating, which is sound pressure levels, right? And then you have articulation, which is the way in which you the way in which you express and meaning, and the way in which you turn vowels and consonants into
like the difference between I wanna to I want to, right? Like that kind of thing. like in the way that you, depending on the style of the song and the way that you want to communicate it and the way you would like people to feel it and receive it, same as with language, the way one author will write something like so that it reaches an audience versus the way another one will, so that it's kind of shows what the character is, who the character is. That is the same, in my opinion, in articulation.
Yeah. So part of it is getting the sound to resonate in the places it needs to resonate, right? And so for a lot of people, we tend to stick our sound back in here. We kind of like so as lifting and getting the sound up to resonate in a focus on like, where is the resonating point, right? Is it in here? And as you can tell just by the way somebody speaks, whether or not, where their focus of the resonating is. So for you, Paul, you're a big guy, right? But you have a very high speaking voice, right? You speak a lot, and you speak a lot higher. And I know this because I've worked with you for years, but you're also a high tenor. So your entire resonating, and you're a singer, so you've been resonating up in this area your whole life, right? But some people sing and talk for a speaking level from a very low point, right? So starting with where they're, again, meeting people where they are. How do they speak? Where do they speak from? Right? What is their breathing like when they speak? So if you can start by just articulating the front ends and the back ends of your words, right?
Yeah.
And I always look to hip hop in this. I'm like rappers are like, except the mumble rappers, but that's not really.
It's a whole new thing. It's a whole new thing.
So, but like the idea of connecting your vowels and your consonants is like something that if you listen to Mos Def, you listen to Q-Tip, stuff like that, their articulation and their breathing is like to me, far beyond most singers. Like it's like
Yeah.
incredible the way that they're able to articulate and move their voice up and down, but really more from a speaking tone than from a singing tone, right? So their tonality is there, but it's really pitched more like it's at speech levels.
Yep.
Um,
100%.
we articulate, uh, tend to articulate the front ends of our words, but not the back, right? So we say, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on?" No, 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 right? Like,
Yeah.
the way that there's two little idioms that I use. One is you're bouncing on a wave of vowels from consonant to consonant, right?
Mm.
So you're bouncing on your consonants are the points that you're landing on, and the vowels are what you're moving through, right?
Okay.
The other one is the vowels are the soul of your music, and the consonants are the meaning, right?
Uh,
So the idea that so if you don't articulate your consonants and your vowels, um, then if you don't articulate your consonants, then you're not going to get the meaning through. And it changes for different styles of music. And it also brings up a bigger point, which is that idea that vowels and that vowel modification, which is that we actually have to change the way we sing our vowels and we pronounce our vowels in order is different in singing than it is the way we speak, right? So when you're singing and classical vocal coaches, they really there's a very specific way that that go back to the Spanish vowels. So you really only have 5 sounds. You have e, I, o, u, right? Everything else is what's called a diphthong, which sounds like an insult. It's like, yo, you diphthong. Like, I'm like,
hey,
as a
no,
diphthong.
hey, what you call me? What you call me? All right.
But a diphthong is just a vowel that has multiple sounds. So a, I,
Yeah.
o, right? So like the letter I doesn't exist. It's
Mm.
ah and e. So as we sing, we have to like relearn how our vowels are used in speech,
Mm.
and that's where the artistry comes in, because you're starting to actually like when Sam Cooke sings love, listen to Sam Cooke sing love. It's not
Yeah.
love, it's la love,
Yeah.
right? La, I love you, right?
Yeah.
For such
Yeah.
reason, so the big joke with my students is I'm like, what's the vowel? They're like, ah. The answer is always ah. What's the vowel? Ah. Right. Like,
Most people who sing, that's the vowel. Like, it's wild. Like, or ooh, ah, ooh, like especially in that kind of music, that was all the craze then.
yeah. And if you're belting, the vowel is ah, right?
Yeah.
Ah, right? Or day, right? So as you get up into the higher parts, you're going to modify your vowel and lift the back of your tongue a little bit more and have more of an a sort of sound. And that's what's going to be able to, as your voice gets narrower and narrower up near the top of your
Yeah.
belt, your chest voice or your belt voice, you're gonna have to make that a little bit brighter and push that focus of the resonance out, and that's what's going to enable you to get up to those up in those higher notes.
So I love it, man. I love this. So we got some questions coming in, and
Oh
we
yeah,
got some comments coming in. And one thing that I think the question and the comment, this comment from Zach, and then the question from Michaela, I think they're both really really important questions. One is that he basically was talking about something you told me a long time ago, is that warming up through working out. And then, the question there was about the question is, when performing live, what can you do to help your breath control and being able to control your breathing while you're performing live? And that's something you've been talking about a little bit, but I think that piece that Zach is bringing up is a good thing that we can talk about in that moment too.
sure. So just as far as breathing, I mean, breathing is something you have to practice. Right,
Mhm.
and that's why and there's a lot of different ways you can practice it. You can practice it through Alexandrian technique, which is the kind of the traditional European way. I've learned the depth of breathing for me has come more through yoga first, and then qigong, which I think to me is like, it's ancient. They've been doing it for 5,000 years, and they've really, the idea of connecting body, mind, and spirit is fundamental to how we live and breathe. And so practicing breathing, the best way you have to be able to practice it so that you can bring it onto stage.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be like, I'm going to breathe on stage. I'm going to learn, I mean, practice breathing is a practice. Standing is a practice, right? So,
Yeah.
so, basic breathing techniques you can do, if you, as far as before you step on stage, one really important thing to do is find a quiet space somewhere and just breathe and bring your awareness to your breath. And it's as simple as put, in, relax, right? Breathe out, push in,
Mm-hmm.
and just do that. Find space and breathe in and out. Close your mind, close your, let all the bullshit of your day kind of pass through you and
Mm-hmm.
breathe in and out, right?
Be in that moment. Be present in that moment, because that's really important. Yeah.
Yep. And develop your practice. Develop your breathing practice. That would be the first thing I would say. It's like find a time to do it. And there's, a ton of exercises. Everything's out there on the internet. You can find breathing exercises that, I've got my own, and I've got ways that I teach. Every vocal coach has ways that they teach breathing, but it's fundamental.
I think one of the other things I would mention, just piggybacking off of that, is to this question, is that remembering that your voice is in your body, which means that your instrument, unlike any other musician, is your body, right? Like that is it. So how you treat your body, how much sleep you get, how much exercise you get, how much water you drink, all that impacts the way that the vibration of your voice happens and what's going on. Like if you see vocal cords, actually nothing happens until those cords come together and kind of rub together and create that vibration. So what I would say with that is what Zach is speaking about, which Ben talked to me about early on, is something one of his teachers told him about. Running, like actually doing a light exercise routine before you actually perform, maybe 20 minutes to warm up, just to actually meets almost the same requirement as a lot of the vocal exercises and warming up your voice. So that exercise will warm you up. And then at that point, you also get your lungs going and expand your lungs. And that's going to help you with being able to work with your breath when you're performing live. One exercise that I've done with breath control is to breathe in, right? Like just take a deep breath and then slowly exhale it out, like in small spurts, because it allows you to say, okay, I'm controlling how quickly I'm expelling the air that I'm using and how much I'm using each time. So it doesn't happen, and really counted it 1, 2, 3, 4. How long can you go with that? And then do that and repeat again. And then do that and repeat again. And I grew in that, and that comes with repetitions. And I was besides the singer, I played sports. So I knew about sitting in my bed and with a basketball, just repetitively working on my art. So I did the same thing with the voice of like, I need to do this over and over again until I get that control of my breath.
Well, and put it this way, how important is breath to a good, to a free throw?
Yeah. Very much. It's very, very much. The routine is everything for a free throw. Like you see people, they think it's funny. Like you get to the free throw line and everyone has a routine. If you watch a person take a free throw, they dribble 3 times, breathe in, breathe out, shoot. Some people dribble once and then shoot. Some people don't dribble at all. They just shake the ball a couple of times, breathe in and shoot. And there's so many, but for each person, it's important for them to get present with that moment, use the routine, take a deep breath, and then shoot the ball.
Yeah. Absolutely. And going to that point, I had a funny conversation with my kid's soccer coach, this guy Frey, is a phenomenal coach, was the Belgian, I think the under 21 national team coach for a while. He's a top level, soccer coach. And he said we were having lunch at a diner in between games a while back when the world was moving. And he said, yeah, I don't believe in warming up. I was like, wait, what? Like, he goes, or stretching. He's like, why do you stretch? You're stretching all these things out. He goes, all you're doing is stretching things out so you can get injured. Like the idea of, he's like, if you're going to warm up to play soccer, you have to warm up the muscles that you use to play soccer.
Mm.
You don't need to stretch out muscles you don't need when you're playing soccer. The exercises for warming up with soccer are the exercises that you're going, are the muscles that you're going to use for soccer. Beyond that, the whole idea of it, and he said the other thing is that the other reason for exercising or for warming up is just to connect your mind to your body, right?
Mm.
Most of us, when we're singing, if we're singing in the afternoon, we've had warm liquids, we've had we've exercised, we've spoken, right? The main point of warming up is to connect your mind to your voice, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. So Dr. Scott had that whole thing where he did this test where he would have his classical singers who were going to sing an aria, and he'd have them come in, they would do a good 20-minute warm up, and then they would sing the aria.
Mm.
And then the next lesson they would come in and not do any warm up at all, but he would have them go and exercise, work up a sweat, run, do something that was good for their mind and good for their body, and then come in and sing the aria cold, right? Just without any warm up. And he said every time the exercise was a better warm up for them than da 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 da, right? And those exercises, which isn't to say that you shouldn't do that. Most of my students, we do warm ups and we work through, but the point of that is really to warm up their brain, connect their brain to their body, get them into their breath, right? It's not, you're not jumping in and stretching your vocal cords like this and like this so that they'll be able to sing. It's what's really so important is that idea of being able to connect what you're doing here to what you're doing here, right? The mind, the body, your posture, washing let's get the rest of the day out of here, right? All the crap that happened to you today, let's get rid of that. Let's bring yourself in for these 45 minutes that we have our lesson together. We're going to cool down, and I want you to come out of this lesson feeling better than you did when you came in. And that's really, honestly, that's why musicians are musicians, right? Is that some altruistic reason that most musicians, I want to help the world? I mean, as you know, and I know, we know lots of musicians, a lot of great people, a lot of, but musicians play music because it's like soul filling. That's what it brings. It fills your soul, and it does make you a better person as far as being able to deal with other people out in the world, but you're doing it to fill your soul. And that's
anything. It's any practice. The old saying: you can't offer what you don't have. You can't fill up your own cups that you can let it overflow or give it to other people. You have to fill up your own cup to be able to offer it to other people. And I think with music and learning that, I think one of the things that I'm hearing, and I think this will carry on, and as we get close to the end of the conversation, that this is a practice, and music is a practice. But let's just limit in right now to our conversation about voice. The voice is a practice that's very similar to some of the things that we hear when you talk about mindfulness, when you talk about health and wellness, when you talk about well-being as a whole. That practice of I'm going to work on focusing on my breath, being here in the present moment, letting the concerns of the day wash away, approaching it in the standpoint of how do I take care of my mental, physical, emotional health. All of those things play into the instrument that is your voice that you're going to use to communicate whatever it is. And that alone, just if we got in that practice, can help us in our day-to-day life with communicating, with business meetings, with relationships. Just having that ability to get present and have some moments and some time for yourself and something that you love and enjoy. I think that's a real big win when you're practicing voice, to think of that.
Absolutely. And and for other musicians, it's funny because a lot of my musician friends are guys, mostly dudes, who grew up like, getting really good at playing an instrument. They're like phenomenal at an instrument, but they don't really become deep musicians until they learn how to breathe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can play all the notes in the world. You can play all the scales. You can do all the 2/5s. You can run through Charlie Parker tunes. You can
Mhm.
sing this aria. But once it's not until you learn the breath. And what happened to a lot of my musician friends is that when they get when they would get mid 20s into their 30s, then they would learn to sing. There were guys that were like, nah, I'm not really gonna. I'm not really gonna I'm not really gonna do. I don't sing. I play piano. But it was when they learned how to sing, they learned how to breathe, and when they learned how to breathe, their phrasing changed, and they became a better pianist, right?
Yep, 100%.
So
My
that's
boy Chris already just popped in. What's up, Chris? Saw that. Cool, man. Yeah, no, 100%, man. The breath is key to everything. So as we're wrapping up, man, tell people where can we go ahead and take classes, your classes and things like that? Where can people sign up? I know we got some classes coming up. Why don't you talk a little bit about that for a minute?
yeah, so at communitymusicspace.com, we've got 5 new classes. They're 6-week classes that are coming up. They're all virtual, online Zoom classes. I'm offering a song lab, which is going to run 6 weeks. It's basically giving people a chance to work on their own individual songs, work in a group, but also begin to work, be able to learn techniques and then apply them to a song that they're working on. So it's just a 6-week class. It'll run through the end of June. It begins next, what is that, the 11th, I think, whatever that day is.
100%.
If you can check it out at communitymusicspace.com. We'll post it on the Facebook page here as well. And then I'm also offering a song lab, voice lab is the singing one. The song lab is for songwriters. So, and I'm sure Paul, you'll be popping into that one as well.
Yeah, for sure. I love popping into the classes. So especially in this setting,
Yeah, Song Lab is really for songwriters. It's a collaborative opportunity for people to share their songs, get feedback from their songs. I basically moderate that. So we talk about lyricism. We also talk about technique, performance technique, but a lot of it's also geared towards being able to song structure, choruses, rhyming, chord progressions, all that good stuff. And then we've got a bunch of classes for kids and teens as well, a language and music class. So if you go to a community music space class, communitymusicspace.com,
yeah.
and click on the classes, you'll see the classes up there.
Yeah, and hit us up here on the Facebook page if you got questions. You can also reach out to each one of us we got our Instagram, Community Music Space Instagram, and all that other stuff. You can message us there. So all the normal social network stuff, and then definitely go to the website, check out the classes. We're really trying to help also people who are going through this moment of being in social distancing, isolation. We're kind of like in our houses, giving people something to do, kids something to do, adults something to do, some way to do that. And it's both classes and private lessons. So if you're like, I'm a little bit shy about singing in a group of people, then there's also the private stuff. So, man, it has been a pleasure to do this. We do this anyway, so it's like I always say on another show I do, I've with my cousin, I'm always like, well, we would be talking about this anyway, so it's like good to share it with people that we,
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Paul, and thank you for everybody for chiming in. I just want to give a shout to Jessica Rogowski. I think we should do a thing with having Jessica come on, and then my man Zach Freeman out there was who's actually partially responsible for connecting you and me, Paul.
Yeah, 100%.
And Zach, who's a tremendous singer and beatboxer. So Zach, I love the fact that you were here. And we should definitely have Zach come on too at some point and do some teach us a little bit about beatboxing.
Oh man, what? Yeah, no, I love that. Actually, yeah, you should join up on. We should get him into the Beat Labs class, man. When we start talking about Beat Labs, because that's like one of those things where we're showing kids like the foundational elements of hip hop, and nothing more foundational than beatboxing. So that's awesome. Let's do that. All right, all. Well, thank you for joining us. This is our first one. We will be back during the week. I'm sure we're gonna, I think we're gonna be talking film tomorrow, possibly, and then I know Thursday we're gonna be on here with two really great songwriters, Zach and Miles, and we're working with them and creating their record, and we're gonna go ahead and have them go ahead and come and talk about their songwriting process.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. That's gonna be fun. 10 a.m. Is it 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Thursday. We're gonna be here at 10 a.m. Thursday.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much, and thanks for everybody for tuning in. This is awesome.
It was awesome. See you guys next time. Thanks, guys.
Take it easy.